Welcome to Get Serious, where at Serious Land Capital, we have successfully funded over $6.5 million worth of land deals with industry leading 41% operating margins, and where I personally consult from practical AI implementations to companies collectively doing over $50 million in annualized revenue. So today I wanted to tackle the AI angle again as well. I mean, that's pretty much every episode here, but especially some more real life impacts. So I was at my brother's wedding over the past weekend here. And first off, like those are just reminders when you can get great family and friends event and, you know, be in touch, like people would say nowadays, like touch grass and just be in touch with real people, not in front of a screen all day. Like it is, I think, as healthy and comforting to the soul as probably anything. And the research, peer reviewed research on longevity and so forth would back that up. So I'm just mentioning even more anecdotal evidence here where. Even though it was a tiring weekend and so forth, just so rejuvenating to be in a space like that. And, unfortunately, too many of us are missing out on opportunities like that. I'd consider myself to be a part of that as well, outside of my own immediate family. But some key conversations I had, seeing some of my extended family, where you know all my cousins and my aunt and uncles and so forth, like I might see them once a year, if that. We live in different places, and again, just general busyness and so forth. So I'm not routinely, hearing about their lives and so forth, and hearing from people outside my own typical bubble, whether that's professionally or again even just immediate family, and chatting with a couple of my cousins, both of whom are like almost 20 years older than me, and had kids much earlier. What one cousin, him and his wife had adopted a son, when he was around like 10 years old, and now he's approaching 30. And we had gone to his, I believe, college graduation 3 years ago, and he was planning to enter the workforce. Really wanted to get into design and animation. This was like the start of 2023, right? Like AI had just come out, ChatGPT, so it wasn't like even close to what like no one was really thinking about like the massive potential job impact that AI could have at that time. At least I don't recall that. It wasn't a key area of concern, but yeah, he really wanted to get an animation. Yeah, possibly get over to California or what have you. Like Texas wasn't the best option for that, so we were kind of rooting for him. I remember like giving some advice over to my cousin as well as their son on routes to break into the industry and so forth, but hadn't really heard much after that. And when I checked in at this wedding, again about 3 years later, same situation, just has not been able to find a job outside of, I think, kind of like lower paid work locally. I'm not sure exactly what he's doing, but the animation side slash design just really has not worked out. And my cousins were mentioning, hey, like double hit of job market, which yeah, true for younger folks, but again, he's like almost 30 here. This is not to be disparaging or anything, it's my family, but more just pointing out, okay, some of these numbers that we hear about in news reports and so forth, like this is actually made real. I'm sure many of you can report your own anecdotes as well here, just personalizing the real impact that people are dealing with. So that they mentioned the dual impact on job market, tough, plus the double whammy of just AI really entering in full force. But yeah, that's a real impact. So like 3 years later and like no traction in that direction. I got the sense from my cousin that they didn't really want to talk about that. I can't blame them. So like I didn't really pry into, even though I'm curious about that particular outcome and situation. I had to take the nugget for what it was worth, and just file that away of like, yeah, it's unfortunate. And of course, like everybody has to pull themselves up by their own bootstraps, continue to skill build. Like you'll hear me pound the drum constantly, but like we also know that not everybody will do that. And the job market is a job market, and this technology is just moving forward at such an insane rate and I'll connect this back to animation as well here shortly. And then my other set of cousins, their kids, they have two boys. One is now 21 and one's 19. Like even 15 is year age difference, a little bit more than that between my brother and I, and those cousins. Like forever, we just kind of think of them as like baby cousins here. So it's hard to imagine them as like college age kids. But the older one wants to go into animation as well here, something within design. But so far, like he's still in college. From what I recall, this was like a little bit of a longer conversation, but hasn't been able to find anything that's like really leading to a great placement. And then the younger son is more interested in like coding, engineering, and paired with AI, which again, like I think pretty much every job needs to be paired with going forward. And my cousin also mentioned, like he's part of a program that has like 90% plus job placement rate. Again, is that going to be the future of where jobs are heading? Is like just expecting W-2s, or is it going to have to be more freelance entrepreneurial work? I think the jury's out on that, but nevertheless, I think probably the second son might be set up a little bit better. But again, like both of them are impacted by, hey, AI is just part of the job market now, and like you have to be building a moat around your skill set and incorporating that into your daily life. Again, being an AI architect, like Callum always talks about, like the lingo that I'll throw around routinely here. So that's just sharing like real impacts and within my own extended family that got the gears turning a bit. And again, I was kind of filing away, and I also asked like, hey, cousin's getting a little bit older here. My the kids of my cousins. I guess it still makes them cousins of mine. To be overly confusing with the language, but like, hey, are they starting to date around anything? They're like, no, not really. And also like COVID impact, and during high school, the social regression that happened. Like, again, we hear about this. We did hear all about that in the news. Hard to avoid, but like, hearing about it in closer to home circumstances, like it all makes it more real here. So we're keeping all that to the side, which again, I think continues to be a bigger and bigger concern. And as these models like just continue to increase in capability, like literally by the week, I honestly could spend each and every show just going over the new developments in AI. Like plenty of shows do that anyway, so you can find them. But it is just so insane with how capable these things are. And plenty of the times where I think I'm actually correcting the AI models, they're actually pushing back, and they were more accurate than I was anyway here. So she was kind of on the other foot to some degree. But some other things I'm noticing as well here too, and we always talk about like the AI content production. I mean, it's all over the social channels, any media site out there. But I know there was a bigger argument and thought of like us as humans, even if people really start producing like AI books or AI TV shows or movies or what have you, are we going to value those as much, or are we going to kind of decrease the interest that we might have from something that we know is like generated from AI? And I think like most people would believe that to be the case. Like I'd include myself in that camp generally. I guess there's going to be a point where like AI produced content versus human produced like might just be completely indistinguishable, and we just might not matter. But I think there are still like telling signs at this point, and most people would prefer, okay, yeah, I want the human touch on this. Or honestly, like even if it isn't indistinguishable, but like you're told later, like, are you going to have the resonant connection to the human produced content versus the AI produced? I don't know, but that's an open question here. But I did notice, like, even over the past week or two, again, as these models are just becoming more and more powerful, like my wife started watching these. I don't think they're YouTube shorts, but they're YouTube videos that are, I think short episodic content, especially within like the fantasy space here, and like seem to be animated like decently well. But I mean, they don't try to hide anything. Like that, this is AI produced content targeting what is that subgenre, like the Court of Thorns type stuff, where it's romantasy, I want to say, like romance plus fantasy. I mean, a lot of female readers. My wife is definitely one of them, and she like knows, hey, yeah, this is AI, like I shouldn't really like this, but she's just finding herself drawn more and more into consuming this because it's like right up her alley. And just finding ways to hook more deeply in. And so it's like, this is a real test case where, all right, we have AI produced content that is now reaching a threshold where even if people know it is and they think, yeah, I really shouldn't like this as much, it's becoming good enough and interesting enough to further grip attention and take away from, hey, finding some other human generated content, even if you might have like reviewed it before. So, just mentioning that, I haven't reviewed those, like the AI produced content that my wife's watching, like as in as much detail. I could probably go into a lot more depth about that, but I'm just like noticing what she's telling me, kind of watching over her shoulder sometimes. So, maybe you have some other stories to share about that as well too in your own life. But again, we're seeing that continue to grow here. AI produced content, like again, this is within the animation space, that is even more telling that, hey, we don't even need like a human designer who knows how to manipulate AI. Now this is just like AI producing it and still finding human watchers, probably in the millions. So that's going to make it even more difficult for certain jobs within those space. Again, for whatever you can kind of like consider a job. To me, it's like just an evolving list of tasks that anybody is doing. And also within that AI content space, like, again, what is like AI slop or not? Like, in my 3-year-old daughter, most of the time, like if we're having her in front of a screen, some like YouTube has become the default, which again, like YouTube gets more hours of content than any other streamer or any source of content, like almost combined. Like, it's just crazy how many hours goes to that, and a ton of kids content as well too, and like not like terrible either. Like a lot of like fully produced shows are on that as well, and it's free with our YouTube Premium, at least fairly cheap subscription. But there's with the algorithm, some stuff will pop up that's like semi related to what my daughter is watching, but I'm looking at it, I'm like, is this AI slop or not? And it's sometimes it's like hard to tell. Sometimes like this just seems so bad. Like the animation just seems so basic. It's just repetitive sounds that come up again and again. Or like, one simple is like these different type of cars that are just like being dropped down slides and doing jumps, and then they go from like a fire truck to a police car. So I'm like really basic, but it's just it will grip my daughter's like, yeah, I just want to watch this. And I like, even though it's not like bad, there's no bad words or anything like that. I have a reaction to it. I was like, this is AI slop here. Like, we shouldn't be consuming this. I don't feel this is appropriate for you to be watching, compared to like, I guess, human based stuff that might even be somewhat similar here. But yeah, I just, again, sharing. I don't really have a firm answer on this, but like this AI produced content is just increasing by the day, gripping our attention in real ways here, and it's becoming harder to parse it out like on a daily basis. And again, taking away real attention, the most valuable commodity in the world, even more so than time, away from anything human produced here. So noting that as well, and again, just mentioning some of the additional progress, as well as like still the gap in skills here. So again, like I'm offering more AI consulting services nowadays here, and started doing a diagnostic for a company that really serves as the marketing arm for a multi-billion-dollar multifamily firm. And I had already asked some prelim questions before I got on with their main marketing person, and then I was going through like their tech stack and setup and all that. And, like, they're making a lot of product. Like, they're earning six figures, annual recurring revenue from a mastermind group that they just started earlier this year, really from solid brand building and so forth. But they're not using like any AI workflows or almost any type of systematic process in which, and like no data attribution at all. And I'm like, man, that some of these systems, like, to me, that it's the most exciting because they're succeeding in spite of having like no optimization done at all here. But it is also a reminder of where I'm like, part of like Kellen's community, and even within our own business, like, we are just AI forward everything, just trying to apply, and there's still, like, even in sophisticated companies, just a huge swath of people that aren't like even applying this in the most basic ways. And so, like, the route for us that are able to apply these skills, first off, great, because you can build a moat around businesses that or to more competitively advantage your business against others by utilizing these AI workflows. But again, there's like plenty of people who are maybe just going to be years behind learning some of these workflows. So like you can just implement for them. Like I'm less of the opinion, and again, I'm going to be biased here, given that selling services here, that like everybody is just going to be ready to use AI to the best degree possible, full optimizations that you won't need outside help anymore. Like I just don't see that, or even if that does happen, that's probably still years away, because so many people are going to be like fighting it every step of the way. They're not going to be, or not even fighting it, but it's like they're not. There's not a forcing function for them to really adapt. I mean, there might be, because like, and we can see. I think this incoming hit to jobs here is still going to be really significant, that we still don't know the full implications of, and it's going to be changing like almost on a month by month basis. Again, giving you anecdotal evidence here, I'm seeing these other teams that are naturally going to be performing below what they could because they're not using AI workflows here. So are they going to be outcompeted by somebody else? Like I think it's just a matter of time. No matter what your brand recognition is, but like to me, it was like, yeah, perfect opportunity. Hey, here's what you can do here. If you want me to come in, great. If not, no worries. But like there's going to be no shortage of opportunities like this if you can really stay ahead of the curve. And part of this is just benefited from the frontier labs just fighting each other tooth and nail here. Like right now, mid 2026, like it's really between Anthropic and OpenAI. Like they have the two best models. They're the most frontier labs in the world. And it used to be ChatGPT's game, OpenAI's game, for really most of the past few years. Anthropic now has by most accounts like become the team to beat, the model to beat, and most like enterprise users are going to be headed towards Claude here. But like again, it's just constant competition, right? And it's all to the benefit of us users. I mean, it would not be good if there's only going to be one king, like Naval points this out, because then you get like a monopoly situation. They can charge whatever they want. But even if there's two, they can continue to just fight each other and drive down costs more and try to win more customers. That to me, like that benefits all of us as end users here. And so like I noted that ChatGPT recently, first they launched that 5.6 model, which is, by most measures as good, if not better than Claude Fable, which had like just come out last month. And I thought was, just a mind blowing model here. And now 5.6 on ChatGPT is here available, even cheaper than Fable. And so that's going to put pressure on Anthropic to also make Fable, cheaper and more widely available to retain users. But also when I was opening up ChatGPT on the desktop over the past week, I have so much data within, like it's become almost like what they call like the Apple Garden. Like once you enter the Mac ecosystem, you're kind of stuck within it because everything connects together, and like trying to exit out of it's just a big pain. So similar with Claude, we have so many projects and data built within it that even if some of these models are a little bit better, it's like, am I going to shift over? But ChatGPT was like, hey, if you've been using Claude here, we can import all of your projects, all of your co-work, existing chats, your Claude Code, existing chats, and just bring that in. So then you can start working on 5.6 right away. And it's just a seamless transition. So I noted that like very recently, but it's a brilliant play to be able to do that. I'm sure Anthropic hates that as well. But it also will force them to evolve and adapt here. I don't think the import is quite perfect when I looked at it. I don't think it was like capturing all my chats that I had, but the fact that they're even trying to do that and imported, most, if not all of them, like, yeah, makes the threshold for me to go back to ChatGPT for anything just that much smaller, since like, oh yeah, I can just have all my work basically like synced across both of these devices. And I would say like from an image perspective, like everybody was using Nano Banana for a while. The Gemini, like Google's just kind of fallen off. Apparently, the people in the know behind the scenes think, yeah, Google's going to have some big splashes soon, but right now they're like clearly behind OpenAI and Anthropic. But the image generation with 5.6 from OpenAI, like it's just incredible. Again, that goes back to the AI slop conversation or AI produced content here. Full circle like animation jobs. Like you'll see within my newsletter, I'll try to experiment and build images and cartoons within OpenAI, and they've like been increasing in quality week over week because the models keep getting better here and my prompts keep getting better. But like just looking super sharp. I'm like, man, this is just amazing how far we've come in the past year, let alone the past few years with image generation. Like it really is tremendous. So all of this is to say, like, this is just a constant topic we have to stay on top of, professionally, personally, within society, looking within our family, where there really is going to be more of the haves and the have-nots. Like I don't see how we're going to avoid that unless we get like significantly more governance or I don't even know what to say, like interference in some form or fashion of like trying to upskill or at least provide safety nets for most of society here. Because again, I'm seeing this within my own family, which is more fortunate than most. So maybe it won't be like felt quite as acutely down the line here, but nevertheless, so many millions of people are going to be dealing with this, and billions of people when we consider worldwide here, and how that's going to shape what we're working with to come. But again, these technologies are becoming so much better by the week. I gave you some other examples on exactly what they're doing and how the two kings are fighting each other for the benefit of us all, in my opinion, at least, that those of us using AI. So I want you to keep that in mind, and I'd love to hear from you. Like if you have other examples on what you're seeing within your own family, your own usage, how you feel about AI produced content versus not here. Like this is such a fascinating conversation. Like we are living in an experiment in real time. So with all of that in mind, would love if you subscribe and share. Plus, if you have any land deals for us to look at, you can send them over at seriousland.capital. And if you're interested in potentially working with me, I'm taking a very limited number of engagements for AI implementations in particular businesses. Again, currently I'm working with a set of businesses that are collectively doing over $50 million in annualized revenue and growing that number by the month. So with all that in mind, take care, everybody. Talk to you next time. Bye.